There are people who walk into a room, and without uttering a single word, every gaze turns toward them. No one dares to interrupt. No one dares to underestimate them. They are not the most powerful, nor the wealthiest, nor even the most intelligent, yet they possess something most of us have lost: the power of respect. They do not beg to be heard, because their very presence commands silence. So what creates that difference? The answer does not lie in talent or status, but in a psychological principle that Machiavelli understood 5 centuries ago. Men respect only what they fear to lose. And this is where most of us fail. We teach others to disregard us, not through words, but through silence. When someone interrupts and we say nothing, when a friend cancels 3 times and we still smile, when a colleague takes credit and we stay quiet, we send a clear message: I will do nothing. And each small act slowly trains others to believe they can cross our boundaries without consequence. The weak are not powerless because they lack ability, but because they crave approval. They want everyone to be pleased. They want to avoid conflict. They want to be seen as nice. But that desire makes them beggars for recognition, respect, and a place in others' hearts. The strong, on the other hand, ask for nothing. They have their own standards and do not negotiate with disrespect. They understand that if your worth depends on being liked, you have already bound your freedom to someone else's hand. For when you compromise to be loved, you sacrifice what makes you worthy of respect. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Here, fear does not mean terror. It means the awareness of consequence. When people understand that crossing your boundaries will cost them something, they stop. True power does not lie in shouting. It lies in boundaries enforced in silence. And that is the cruel paradox of society. The more you try to please everyone, the less respect you command. When you always agree, always show up, always sacrifice yourself for peace, people begin to take you for granted. But when you learn to say no, when you become selective with your energy, you become scarce, and scarcity breeds value. True strength begins the moment you stop needing to be liked. Because when you no longer live to please others, you finally begin to live as someone who is respected. The sweet trap of wanting to be liked. None of us are born wanting to be hated. From childhood, we learn to seek others' smiles as proof that we are good enough. But as we grow older, that habit becomes the very trap that robs us of power. Because when you need to be liked, you are no longer free. Those who constantly seek approval share one trait. They fear losing agreement more than losing themselves. They nod when they want to say no. They bow when anger burns inside. They choose silence, thinking it will keep the peace. But Machiavelli would call that the stupidity of the weak, those willing to trade dignity for a fleeting sense of comfort. When you live to be liked, you become predictable, and therefore controllable. People know you will smile even when indulted. They know you will agree even while being exploited. And when people can predict you, they stop respecting you. Predictability kills authority. You become a book anyone can read, a pawn anyone can move. Those who command respect play a different game. They do not need to be liked, and that is precisely why they are respected. When they say "Why?" they offer no justification. When they withdraw, they give no explanation. They make others think twice before overstepping, because everyone knows their approval is not easily won. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." He was not glorifying cruelty. He was describing the psychology of consequence, the essence of respect. People do not respect you because you are kind. They respect you because they know that crossing your line will cost them something. Not through violence, but through loss. The loss of opportunity, of presence, of trust. When you crave approval too much, you become a slave to other people's emotions. A trivial criticism can shatter your mood. A cold glance can make you question your worth. And just like that, others can control you entirely, simply by withdrawing their approval. That is why the harder you try to please everyone, the less respect you receive. People do not respect those who bow to be loved. They exploit them. Affection never comes from begging. When you are too agreeable, you teach others that your kindness is free, and they will take endlessly without ever giving back. In contrast, when you begin to set boundaries, when you are willing to be disliked if necessary, something remarkable happens. People start to listen. Your voice gains weight, your silence gains power. Because at last, they realize you do not need their approval to exist. The cruel truth is this: the more you crave to be liked, the less you are valued. The more you dare to be disliked, the more you are respected. Machiavelli understood this long ago, and to this day, it remains as true as when he wrote The Prince. The weak live to be loved, the strong live to be respected. And that difference marks the boundary between the one who is controlled and the one who commands the game. The dark power of respect. Respect is not praise, nor admiration, nor agreement. Respect is caution. It is the feeling that makes others hesitate before crossing your line. It is a silent yet penetrating power, the kind that forces an entire room to adjust its energy simply because you are present. Those who are respected never try to please anyone. They do not need consensus to feel right, nor flattery to feel worthy. Their strength comes from the principle of consequence. They understand that in every relationship, people will test you, test how easily you yield, whether you can say no, whether you dare to walk away when disrespected. If the answer is no, the game is over. You will always remain the weaker one. Remember this: every action you take teaches others how to treat you. Every time you ignore a disrespectful remark, you silently say, "That's allowed." Every time you let someone exploit you, you declare that your boundaries are only words. And when your tolerance carries no consequence, it becomes an invitation to be disrespected. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He once wrote, "Men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who lets himself be deceived." That is not a hymn to cruelty. It is a cold observation of human nature. People do not respect what costs them nothing. If others know they can insult you without losing anything, they will. If they know their actions have consequences, they will begin to change. Therefore, respect does not come from kindness, it comes from firmness. When someone crosses the line, you need not argue or rage. Just take one clear action. Withdraw your energy, your time, or your presence. No threats are required. The silence of power is warning enough. The difference between being admired and being respected lies here. People admire you for your talent, but respect you for your boundaries. Admiration makes others want to be close to you. Respect makes them know where to stop. A person may be liked for being pleasant, but only one with clear boundaries is truly respected. The dark power of respect lies in its self-reinforcing nature. The more you enforce your limits, the more you are respected. The more you are respected, the easier it becomes to maintain your limits. It is a cycle of power that the weak never touch, because they are too busy chasing affection. The strong, instead, choose differently. They make the world adjust to them. Respect is not something you demand. It is something you enforce by refusing to accept less. Once you understand this, you no longer need to shout to be heard or prove yourself to be acknowledged. You simply hold your silence, the silence of someone who knows their worth. The psychology of control. Who truly holds power in your life? Every conversation, every relationship, every decision in life is a contest of control. No one says it aloud, but it is always there, quietly shaping every interaction. One leads, the other follows. One sets the rules, the other tries to obey. And the question is, which side are you on most of the time? If you are constantly seeking to be liked, the answer is clear. You are not in control. Every time you stay silent to keep the peace, you hand over control of your voice. Every time you say yes when your heart screams no, you surrender control of your actions. Every time you reshape yourself to gain approval, you give others control over your worth. Power, therefore, begins where approval ends. And until you stop living for the smiles of others, you will remain a puppet in their play, instead of the master of your own stage. It is a subtle kind of slavery, emotional slavery. You are not chained by iron, but by the fear of being disliked, rejected, or forgotten. And the cruel truth is, others don't have to force you to do anything. They only need to know that you crave their approval, and that alone gives them control. They can pull you in any direction with nothing more than a calculated glance or a well-timed compliment. Those who live for approval have handed over the control of their emotions to the world. When praised, they feel worthy. When criticized, they crumble. They are no longer autonomous. They react like puppets to every tug of another's strings. And the worst part? They don't even realize it. Machiavelli once said, "He who cannot master himself will always become a tool of another." This truth is not only for politicians, but for every individual. The strong are not those who control others, but those who refuse to be controlled. They speak what they think, do what they believe is right, and do not ask permission to be themselves. The difference between the free and the dependent lies in the origin of their actions. The free act because they want to. The dependent act because they fear. The free can stand alone. The dependent need a crowd to feel safe. The free do not need to be liked because they know that others' affection cannot sustain them. Only self-respect can. When you stop seeking approval, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to adjust to you. People become more careful with their words, more deliberate in their behavior. Because they realize you cannot be controlled by emotion. And in a world where everyone is easily manipulated, your calm becomes your power. True strength does not lie in making others obey. It lies in ensuring no one can make you lose control. When you remain composed even in rejection, you become what Machiavelli called the one who cannot be broken. Remember this. If you don't know who holds the power in a game, it's not you. And if you want to change that, start by reclaiming the only power that truly matters, the power to rule yourself. Addiction to approval, the hidden machine of manipulation. There is something more addictive than alcohol, drugs, or money, the approval of others. Every time someone praises you, every time a post of yours gets likes, you feel a rush. That is not emotion, it is chemistry. Your brain releases dopamine, the chemical that makes you crave the repetition of pleasure. The problem is, you don't realize you've become an addict in someone else's game. Modern society understands this mechanism better than ever. Social media, advertising, even people around you, all know that one well-placed compliment can make you do what they want. Need you to work overtime? You're the most responsible person on the team. Want to borrow your money? You're so generous. No one's as kind as you. Need you to stay silent when disrespected? You're the mature one. Don't stoop to their level. Every sweet word is a string pulling you deeper into the game of control. And you, high on dopamine, don't even notice you're being manipulated. You think they like you. In truth, they just know how to give you the exact dose of dopamine you crave. They don't need to threaten or coerce you. You obey willingly, just to feel liked. That is the nature of approval addiction. It makes you the most predictable person in the room. You no longer act on principle, but on fear of rejection. A compliment opens you up. A critique shakes you. Your life becomes a constant performance to please others, and you forget to ask the only question that matters. What about me? Machiavelli once warned, "He who chases what ought to be, instead of holding to what is, courts his own ruin." When you try to become the image others want, you lose your true self. You change your tone, your attitude, even your values, just to fit the mold they expect. But the tragedy is this: people never respect those who are desperate to please them. The free are different. They are not addicted to validation because they have already given it to themselves. They don't need praise to know their worth, nor fear hatred to know they're right. They act according to principle, not the emotions of the crowd. And that independence makes them impossible to manipulate. Breaking the addiction to approval is a painful journey. Because when you stop seeking to be liked, you will lose people. Some will leave, not because you've changed, but because they can no longer control you. And that is a blessing. Those who stay are the ones who respect who you truly are. They don't stay because you're pleasant. They stay because you have substance. Remember this: praise is cheap to give, but expensive to deserve. Anyone can say you're amazing, but only you know whether you truly are. When you no longer need the world to validate your worth, you become someone no one can control. For in the Machiavellian game of power, the most dangerous person is not the one who is loved, but the one who can live without being loved and remain unshaken. The 6 Machiavellian rules for earning respect. Respect is not something you beg for. It is something you force the world to return. And to do that, you must operate by the laws understood by those who grasp power, not physical power, but psychological strength. Machiavelli left behind principles that the wise have always lived by: quiet, restrained, but commanding. These 6 rules form the foundation of a person who cannot be disrespected. 1. Speak little, do much the weak justify. The strong act. When you explain too much, you are begging for agreement. When you keep talking about what you will do, you drain the gravity of your words. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise act quickly, the foolish wait until necessity compels them." The powerful know that silence is a weapon. They let their actions speak. If someone disrespects you, don't argue. Withdraw your energy. No warnings, no lectures. Silence is the declaration of those who know their worth. 2. Never chase approval. The moment you chase affection, you lose leverage. The one who needs to be accepted will always stand beneath the one who can refuse them. So step out of that pointless race. Don't text to prove your worth. Don't explain to be forgiven. Don't bow to be praised. If someone wants to leave, open the door. Principled indifference is magnetic. People are drawn to those who don't need them to feel complete. 3. Stay calm. When attacked, nothing destabilizes an enemy more than your calm. When you get angry, you hand them control of your emotions. But when you remain composed, even smiling, they grow uneasy. Composure is the highest symbol of strength. The wise don't react, they observe. They know that anger clouds judgment, and losing reason means losing power. 4. Be unpredictable. People fear what they cannot read. If others know exactly how you'll react, they can control you. But if you're sometimes warm, sometimes distant, sometimes open, sometimes reserved, they're forced to guess. And while they're guessing, you control the rhythm of the game. Machiavelli wrote, "If love and fear cannot coexist, let them fear losing you." Unpredictability isn't chaos, it's the art of staying in command. 5. Enforce boundaries. Swiftly and silently. Boundaries mean nothing if you don't enforce them. When someone crosses the line, consequences must come immediately. No warnings. No second chances. Just action. Cut contact, withdraw, revoke access. The powerful don't need to shout to be respected. They simply disappear without a word. Their silence is more intimidating than anger ever could be. 6. Combine the wit of the fox and the strength of the lion. Machiavelli wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves." Therefore, one must be both. Yet in life, intellect alone is not enough. You must also project strength that discourages challenge. Sometimes you must be soft to infiltrate, sometimes hard to maintain position. Know when to smile and when to make others fall silent. That balance is the art of true power. These 6 rules do not make you cold, they make you sovereign. Because the one who needs to prove nothing forces others to prove themselves. And when you reach that state, respect stops being something you demand. It becomes the natural consequence of your unwavering composure. Scarcity and distance, the leverage of invisible power. Human beings are peculiar creatures. They always desire what they cannot easily possess. They crave rarity and disregard what is always available. This is not only an economic law, it is a psychological law of power. And if you wish to be respected, you must learn the art of becoming scarce. The greatest mistake of the weak is believing that constant presence makes them more loved. They are always there, always replying instantly, always ready to help, always saying yes. But the more accessible they become, the less they are valued. When others know you are always there, they stop appreciating you. In the human mind, what comes easily is never seen as valuable. Scarcity, on the other hand, creates legend. When you withdraw your presence, others begin to feel its worth. When you are no longer predictable, they grow curious. When you appear less often, each appearance gains weight. That scarcity transforms you into a rare resource, and people instinctively respect what they fear losing. Look at those who truly hold influence. They do not speak often, nor do they show up everywhere. They choose their timing, their space, their audience. Every word they speak is measured, every act deliberate. This is not coldness, it is strategic control. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands." They see what you appear to be, but few know what you truly are. Keep a measure of mystery, and you keep your power. When you master strategic distance, you send a silent message: my time has value. My presence is a reward, not a right. Others will adjust accordingly. They will speak more carefully, act more respectfully, and soon understand you are no longer someone to take for granted. Yet distance does not mean coldness. It is the art of discernment. You don't need to be isolated to be respected. You only need to know who deserves your energy. Energy is a finite asset. Give it recklessly, and it loses value. Give it intentionally, and it becomes priceless. The beauty of scarcity is its self-reinforcing nature. The rarer you are, the more you are valued. The more you are valued, the more choice you gain. And in that process, you break free from dependency. You no longer need to be invited to the table. You become the one they wait for. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. The wise man knows when to withdraw, for distance strengthens loyalty. Scarcity is the soft weapon of power. It requires no threats, no displays. It simply makes others adjust themselves to avoid losing you. When you reach that point, when your presence becomes a privilege, not an obligation, you ascend to the highest level of power, the one who is respected without asking to be. In the end, the journey is not about learning how to make people like you. It's about learning how to make them afraid to underestimate you. Those who seek to be liked let others define them. Those who demand respect define themselves. Between these two lies an entire world, the world of those who live by their own standard. When you stop living to please, everything changes. Those who once exploited you will drift away, not because you pushed them, but because they cannot stand losing their hold over you. That is not a loss, it is purification. Only those who truly respect you will remain, for they do not come to drain your energy. They come because they recognize its worth. Then comes the inner transformation. When you no longer need others to confirm your value, you achieve a rare kind of freedom. Freedom from the fear of being disliked, from the need to explain, from the pressure to appear right in others' eyes. You stop living under their gaze and begin living by your own code. And that code, according to Machiavelli, is what defines a truly powerful individual. It is not titles that honor men, but men who make titles honorable. Machiavelli said this not to glorify power, but to remind us that respect is not born from rank or position. It arises from how you carry yourself when no one forces you to be strong. The respected do not demand. They simply refuse to accept less than what they deserve. Once you reach that state, your energy changes. You are no longer drawn into meaningless conversations, cheap compliments, or one-sided relationships. You speak less, choose more carefully, and appear only with purpose. And each time you do, the world grows quiet because they sense something in you, the calm certainty of one who does not need to be loved to feel complete. But this path is not easy. You will be misunderstood. They will call you cold, arrogant, or hard to approach. Let them. Those who do not understand you will always judge you by their own fragile standards. But the truly strong are never afraid of being disliked. They only fear losing respect for themselves. That is the destination of this entire journey, self-respect. When you have it, everything else follows. Respect. Authority, magnetism, power. But if you trade it for affection, you will remain bull-like, living by others' praise and dying by their silence. This world is full of people begging to be liked, but desperately lacking those who command respect. So choose your side. Be the one who needs no recognition to exist. Be the one whose silence makes an entire room attentive. Be the one Machiavelli called the sovereign of his own mind. Because in the end, respect is not a reward. It is the birthright of those brave enough to live by their own values.